everybody for joining me on this call. So today's presentation about ProCoat logistics, I really just wanted to walk you guys through what's involved on our end, the operations side, for applying ProCoat to the fertilizer blend. So yeah, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a visual tour of our system, and then I'm also going to talk about kind of our best practices and best practices that we'd like the customer to know about, so that at the end of the day, the customer has the best product, they're happy with their product, because that's our goal here. So to start off with, I'll introduce myself. So I'm on the left there, that's me, Sabrina Westra, and I'm the retail manager here. So my role is I'm kind of the manager at the site here. I manage inventory, I manage the deliveries, I coordinate orders between the sales reps and make sure some of the administration is in place with the CSRs, and oversee site maintenance. And yeah, I blend from time to time, but the person who does the most blending is Kyle Eves, and that's our fertilizer operator, and he's on the right. So yeah, Kyle is really in charge of, he does a lot of the execution of the blends, and he's really, really handy. So he does a lot of tweaking and fixing and kind of troubleshooting if there are ever any issues. So this is, for those of you who may have forgotten our faces, yeah, this is us, but this is kind of more what we look like these days. So we're trying to practice really COVID-19 safe practices here. So most of the time at this point, you'll probably see us in masks. And I'm just going to go over a little bit about why we love ProCoat so much. I know Samantha can speak to a lot of the agronomic benefits, that really beautiful distribution that ProCoat gives for nutrient distribution in the field. There's a lot of really good agronomic reasons, but on our site here, I have a little video I took the other day. Let me know if you can see it. You guys see that? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So that's the video I took the other day. That's a blend that has some ESN, some urea, some phos, and I think a little potash. So that blend, I don't know if I'll play it again. You can probably see it's dusty. Like you can definitely see the dust coming off as it hits the truck there. And so that's, I would say, like, because the ESN's in there and it's coated, it's maybe a little bit less dusty than a blend without ProCoat. But just for comparison, this went out like an hour after, and this is a blend that has ProCoat zinc actually, and you can see that the dust control is amazing. So people who work with this product every single day, we love ProCoat because it really, really helps cut down on our dust. And yeah, fertilizer is naturally dusty, so it does a really nice job of helping to cut down on that. Okay, well, that's kind of neat to play it side by side, and then you get to see a real comparison. So anyways, here's a bit of a tour. So ProCoat comes in these big totes, and what you see on the top there is it's a machine that's connected to an air compressor, and it's agitating that ProCoat. So we have to agitate it every time we get a new tote, and then we like to agitate it for about 15-20 minutes before we use it. So you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but yeah, so our agitator's up here, and then this tote, it's sitting on a scale. So the scale is weighing, yeah, it's weighing that there, and it's we have some hoses and couplers here, and they're connected to the tote. So the ProCoat's coming out of here. It's going into this pump on the right side, and then it's coming up through the hose, and then this hosing leaves our C-can there, and then goes on. Well, actually, I'll show you where it goes in just a couple slides. But anyways, this is where the ProCoat is housed, and we try to keep it at 20 degrees Celsius all year round. We have a heater in here. And yeah, like I said, we have it attached to the air compressor for to keep it agitated. And so I'm just a few pictures from the rest of our facility. This is the bottom of our fertilizer bins where the product is coming out, and you can kind of see, it's not the greatest picture, but you can kind of see some drags underneath the fertilizer bin gates. And so our granular product comes out of there, and then it travels into this leg over here. I don't know if you can see my my mouse, but it all comes together, travels up this leg, and then these bars here on the left, that's where the Pro Coat, I couldn't get close enough to see the holes. It has some holes at the very bottom there, and that's where the Pro Coat comes out. And so we have two scales here. So we're usually running 2 totes at a time, usually a boron and a Pro Coat copper. And one of these bars here is for boron, and one of them is for, or like each bar is corresponding to one scale, one pump and scale setup. So yeah, and so then that's where the Pro Coat actually comes out of. And then on the right here, you can see this is the beginning of our blending screw. So the granular product comes in through there and starts getting blended, and then the Pro Coat on the right drops out of these bars here. So it would be really neat to actually open it up and film it while it was doing it, but we wouldn't be able to do that because we, in order to open this up, we need to lock out our equipment. So best I can show you is kind of still pictures. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of where the fertilizer is coming from, how our Pro Coat is set up, and then all of that, the blended Pro Coat and granular fertilizer travels up this elevator here on the right, and then gets dropped down into, this is our scale hopper. So this is what weighs the final product. And then that gets dropped through a screen into our trucks. So yes, that's just a little bit of a tour. And inside our blending office, I just wanted to show you what we're looking at when we're blending. So on the left, these are this is basically the output of our scales. So the first one's our first scale, the bottom is our second scale right here, the 364. And so we're watching that a lot while we're blending to make sure that that's going down properly. And these are connected to, it's a little bit blurry and hard to see, but on the right, these 2 little bins. Can you guys see my mouse? Yeah. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, these sort of 2 little bins here are Pro Coat on the right. And while we're blending, we can actually see the rates that these are getting pumped out at. And so this is a way for us to ensure that the right amount of Pro Coat is coming out as it's being blended. So we're watching these amounts, and we're watching, they're automatically updated on here. So we're watching these amounts while we're blending. And this is a screenshot from the blending program we use. So this gives us our printout at the end of the blend and how much Pro Coat actually went out. So yeah, so that's what we're doing inside the office. That's why we're not coming out and chatting while we're blending. We're really trying to watch closely to make sure everything is working all right during the blending process. So this is some more of the logistics side. When can you add Pro Coat to a blend? The real question is, like, when can you not add it to a blend? And I don't really think there's an answer to that. Pro Coat, yeah, I think it can go on pretty much any blend that we've put out. It's safe to use with ESN and agrotane. And I'd say our pumps, they can consistently handle up to about 4 kilograms per ton of Pro Coat product. So we have gone higher, and it has worked higher, but I like to stay at 4 and under just because I find that gives us really consistent results. But if you do need a higher amount, then we can work with it, and it just means we're watching it a little bit more closely. And yeah, it just I would say just maybe needs a little bit of extra care with those higher amounts, making sure that the product is being pumped out properly. I have found though that for Pro Coat Zinc, it's worked really well up for, I don't know if it's a bit lighter or something, but it's worked really well up to higher amounts. And another thing that's nice with our facility is because we have 2 scales, we can blend 2 different types of Pro Coat. So sometimes people want both boron and copper. We've had a customer who wanted zinc and copper, or BCMZ and extra copper. So we're really flexible in that way that we can we can add 2 different types of Pro Coat onto the same blend. So one thing that does come up is sometimes we get a blend sheet and it's been approved by the customer and by the sales rep, and it comes to us. We put it in our system. We've double checked it to make sure it's okay, and then we have a customer who says, "Ooh, you know what? I would actually like to change this rate," and that's totally fine. We can absolutely accommodate that. But I did just want to go into it. It's not something that we like to do straight, have a driver come up and then change the rate right there. And the reason why, right at the blending office, and the main reason why is just because there are a lot of components that go into coming up with a blend sheet. You have to remember that your blend, you're thinking about how much what your rate of fertilizer is per acre that you're putting on, and that's affected by how much of some of the other ingredients you need. And it's very easy. There's like 3 or 4 different calculations to make and some conversions between units. So we like to make sure that this gets done in GLGM with a calculator. We don't like to rush that calculation. So as much as possible, if you need to change it, we are totally happy to help you with that. But we don't love changing it right at the, for like a little change, if it's, maybe a like 0.5 of a kilogram per ton, like that's fine, but we just want to make sure that your rate is correct. So if you do have to make any changes, again, please speak to your agronomist or your sales rep, just to make sure they're putting it through the calculator and we're getting the right rate. So I just want to stress that a little bit because, Pro Coat, it's just, you can make little changes that can affect your total amount. So yeah, we just want to make sure that that's always being done properly. So I'm just going to go through a list of the things that we do to try and make sure that we're putting out the best possible product and that you're happy with the product. So again, we always try to double check the blends and rates with the reps and with customers to make sure the customers know what's going on there with what they're getting. And yeah, and then I would say one of the most important things that we do for Pro Coat is your Pro Coat's really going to be successful if it's going on good quality fertilizer. If it's going on super, super dusty fertilizer, it might help for dust control moving from one place to another, but that doesn't help prevent your auger from getting clogged. So we take trying to make sure that we're getting out good quality fertilizer. We take that really seriously. Every time you move fertilizer, the quality degrades a little bit. So we try to follow lots of all the best practices for handling fertilizer. We try to make sure it's not moving a ton, it's not getting ground up in our system, and that we're bringing in good quality fertilizer to start with. So that's one of the things we spend a lot of time doing, is making sure that our fertilizer quality going out is really good. The next thing is that I showed you those bars, those Pro Coat bars earlier, and so we try to make sure those stay clean. One thing that might happen is if you come to pick up a load of fertilizer with Pro Coat, or just a load of fertilizer in the busy season, and you see a stop blending for a little bit, one of the main reasons is because we're cleaning that Pro Coat bar. We just want to make sure it doesn't get gunked up, and every once in a while we just have to, it's just maintenance. And when we're sending out a lot of fertilizer and a lot of Pro Coat, then that's something, unfortunately, we just have to take, the 20 minutes, half an hour just to do. And I know it holds people up sometimes, but again, we just want to make sure that fertilizer going out is, it's getting the good rate of Pro Coat on there and it's good quality. So another thing I mentioned is that Pro Coat has to be properly agitated. And so we try to make sure that that is done, or not try, we always make sure that that's properly agitated before we add it in. And make sure Pro Coat is being stored at the proper temperature. So that's really important for the suspension of the metals in the Pro Coat. So it has to be at the right temperature. and in order for the product to flow and also for the formulation to stay stable. So we store it at a good temperature, and then also when we load it out, we like to load it out when it is warmer than -10 and preferably cooler than 25 degrees. So that's the ideal range that suspension or the formulation stays in the best quality. So that's when we like to work with it. I will, if it's like -15 but not windy, then I found so far that the product stays okay. But really, I prefer to wait until it's a little warmer than -10 and then load out. Yeah. So what can you do to make sure that you're happy with your ProCoat product? Again, just make sure you've discussed all your needs with your rep or your agronomist, and let us know about any changes with as much notice as possible. So yeah, as much notice is great, especially in the busy season. I know everybody's really busy, but the more notice you give, then the more time we have to just double check our calculations. And finally, for you guys or for customers, yeah, just follow best practices for storing your fertilizer in a dry environment. Add floor dry if you need to. Keep your bins in good condition. I was talking to Cody from Yara yesterday, and he was mentioning, ProCoat is really great for dust control, but it is also it's hygroscopic, like the way urea and sulfur can be. So it's not a magic bullet for making sure that your fertilizer is stored, like, how can I put that? It's not a magic cure-all for making sure that your fertilizer stores properly. Like, it won't hurt it, but you just have to treat it the way you would your other, the rest of your fertilizer, keeping it dry and making sure that it's not absorbing moisture as much as possible. So yeah, that's how can I put that? Yeah, that's like basically what I just wanted to say is, if people are having issues with fertilizer flowing and there's ProCoat on it, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's because of the ProCoat, it's probably because of just the humidity. And it's a hard thing to avoid in the springtime, because you've had this cold fertilizer in a bin, and then you're trying to bring it out in warm, humid conditions. So yeah, just following best practices and keeping that product as dry as possible is going to help you make sure that product stays really good and flows really well when you need it. So yeah, so that's pretty much all I had to say about ProCoat Logistics. But if you have any questions, feel free to call me. You can call Kyle, or you can also call Cody, who's our Yara rep here. And yeah, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Like I said, we love using ProCoat. It doesn't give us a ton of trouble. It's it flows really nice, and it helps cut down on our dust here, and truck drivers really like it because it helps cut down on the dust when they're transporting product back and forth. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say about that. Do you guys have any questions?
Thanks, Sabrina. That was really great. Jesus had one comment that he made about ESN that blends with more than 30% ESN. We have to be a little bit more careful with our ProCoat rates because the ProCoat doesn't stick as much to that polymer coating on the ESN, so it's heavier on the rest of the blend. So that, I guess, also speaks to the point you made about changes needing to be made a little bit in advance, because if you have ESN in your blend, we might not be able to increase the rate as much as if you didn't. So
that's right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I should have mentioned that, but yeah, that is a really good point. Mm-hmm.
I think that's all. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and thanks Sabrina for giving us a virtual tour of the fertilizer facility and how ProCoat's applied. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Sabrina or Kyle or Cody or myself or your rep, and we'd be really happy to help you. So thanks everyone.